When I first moved here in 1996, I only really knew two things of Frederick County. I knew the National Road. I had grown up along the extension of that road in Missouri, and I knew that it went through, eventually it went through Frederick and would take me to Baltimore. Not a whole lot to know about a city. The second thing I knew was Barbara Fritchie because of the poem. To drive into Mount Olivet Cemetery, probably in 1997 or 98, and see her grave, started me down a personal, who was this person?
There are a few cities in the country where there is a person that kind of stands out as a kind of figurehead of the community. There aren't that many of them in the country. And I think that Frederick is really lucky that we have a voice, from the past that is one that we can be proud of. It's somebody who was strong and forthcoming and proud of her community. So I think we're lucky.
The poem is a classic underdog tale reminiscent of the Bible story of David and Goliath. Here we have as David, this feeble yet feisty woman in her 90s, and as Goliath, we have none other than General Thomas Jonathan Stonewall Jackson of Virginia. Here we had the most unlikely of rivals, and the underdog comes up victorious, much like the Sylvester Stallone Rocky movies that I grew up with.
Up from the meadows rich with corn, clear on the cool September morn, the clustered spires of Frederick stand, green-walled by the hills of Maryland. As far as I'm concerned, whatever it is, it's a good piece to stir up a little bit of patriotism. It gives you such a glowing, good feel for what the flag means, what the country means, what you're living for.
If this story is true, the idea of a 90-year-old woman who perhaps was recovering from pneumonia, having the courage and the strength and the willpower to get out of her bed and go across the dormer window and snatch that flag before it fell to the street and wave it in front of the rebels and say, "Shoot if you must this old gray head, but spare your country's flag." I thought that is a very intriguing kind of aspect to the story, which I think a young person would find, well, anybody would find. How did this happen? Did it really happen? And the more we think of older people and how they are not swayed by convention, but follow the courage of their convictions, it's plausible, it's possible. And for a kid to hear, it's very interesting.
The poem lives more in the realm of myth and parable. And I think that's what helps make it universal for the ages. And when we read it, that story of Barbara Fritchie suggests that we should do some soul searching. Things that are wrong march up to our doorstep every day, and we have choices to make. Would I act so boldly? Would I speak my voice? Would I speak for what is right in the face of danger? To me, that's where the poem is important and has meaning, but I do find it fascinating to watch the debate over the literal fact.
It's certainly, a story that captures a lot of different aspects of the community. First of all, Whittier, although he never came to Frederick, certainly nailed it when he described the clustered spires of Frederick green-walled by the hills of Maryland. I mean, to this day, that works for us as a tourism slogan because it really sets us apart from so many other places. That you have this great downtown, historic downtown, surrounded by, the rolling hills of Maryland.
We received the legacy not only of Barbara, a wonderfully courageous woman with a gift of longevity, but also through the poet. We have these wonderful images of Frederick, which still pertain.
I'm always amazed that when people come to this house, they say, yes, when I was in school, I remember having to memorize the poem. The poem was very popular.
It's part of the fabric of our own identity and the world identity as Americans, and Barbara Fritchie has a part of that where you have the real person and then you have this super heroine. And that super heroine is part of what it means really to be an American person. And she embodied it perfectly with all of the other greats.